there's a will, there's a way. I've noticed that when I'm hungry around my house, I suspect it's the same around your house, that even if the lights are off, you find a way to feed yourself. You're hungry this morning, that you're here indicates that, and that you remain here even while the lights are off in this horrible, horrible circumstances. Speaks well of you. I have some quotes that it would be nice if they were to pop up on the screen, but apparently they're not going to, so you'll have to listen carefully. The title of my sermon today is Mothers and Others. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I am my mother after all. The sentiment expressed in that would be more clear in something Oscar Wilde said: all women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does, and that is his. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. That's about power and influence. Abraham Lincoln said, "All that I am or ever hope to be, I owe to my angel mother." Later in his life, he said, "I remember my mother's prayers, and they have always followed me. They have clung to me all of my life." There's a Spanish proverb that says, an ounce of mother is worth a pound of clergy. There's an American who wrote, one good mother is worth 100 schoolmasters. James 1. In James chapter 1, verse 21. Therefore, putting aside all filthiness and all that remains of wickedness, in humility receive the word implanted, which is able to save your souls. But prove yourselves doers of the word, and not merely hearers who delude themselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks at his face in a mirror. In verse 21, it's the word. In verse 23, it's a mirror. This is not the only time that we read of a mirror. 1 Corinthians 13 will talk about the mirror and essentially how we see ourselves in the mirror. 2 Corinthians chapter 3 will talk about how when we look in the mirror, we see Jesus. I'm going to talk about something that I have no experience with. I have never been a mother. I will never be a mother. That's why I need to take you to the mirror. In this mirror, we always see at least 3 images. At least 2, actually, always. One being Jesus Christ, and anytime you're looking at him, you're comparing. A mirror is a measuring device, is what it is. So when we look in the words, we see Jesus and we compare ourselves to him, we fall short. And even if you're reading about somebody else in this, you're actually seeing that third image, but as it compares with Jesus, and we're comparing ourselves. So there's always 2 images at least, if not 3. I've never been a mother. I can't speak about it, other than I can take us to the mirror, where you will see some images. If I say something that's wrong, then let me know. Hopefully it'll be right here. I will bring us to the mirror. We'll all go to the mirror together. You mothers are going to need to bring 4 things. First, you will need to bring humility. The New American Standard in verse 21 says, in humility, some of yours will say gentleness or meekness. In humility receive the word implanted, which is able to save your souls. You will need to bring also hearing. Verse 22, prove yourselves doers of the word, not merely hearers. So you're going to hear what the mirror says to you. And then you're going to have to bring holding fast. It says to be a doer, no matter what comes. And mothers experience storms in life. And then you will need God's help. Verse 23, if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks at his natural face in a mirror. For once he has looked at himself and gone away, he's immediately forgotten what kind of a person he was. But one who looks intently at the perfect law, the law of liberty, and abides by it, not having become a forgetful hearer, but an effectual doer, this man or woman or mother will be blessed in what she does. This man will be blessed in what he does. God is there helping you when you're following the plan. Now, the end goal is to be saved. So in humility and hearing and holding fast and help from God, you will get to heaven, which is how it started. Receive the word which is able to save your souls. You will at least save your own soul. Lord willing, have an impact for good on those around you. The word in the New American Standard translated humility. Verse 21. In humility, many of your versions will record it as gentleness or meekness. And that fits the context. Verse 19 was, you know, my beloved brethren, but everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. And not have a harsh word, but a gentle word. Verse 26, if anyone thinks himself to be religious and yet does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this man's religion is worthless. We've all known mothers who are characterized by anger. Mothers who are characterized by unbridled tongues. Mothers who are characterized by harsh language. And it is almost as though it is unnatural. I can't think of anything sadder besides putting Christ on the cross. 1 Peter, put your finger here in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 1, in the same way, you wives, be submissive to your own husbands. This context, now to get to be a mom, you first have to be a wife. And so the characteristic of the mom is verse 4, let it be the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God. Now, that word gentle here is not the same word as gentle or meek or humble in James, but in 1 Peter 3:15, sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts, always being ready to make a defense to everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you, yet with gentleness. Here is. So we're all to be gentle. That's to characterize man. And I say the sermon is mothers and others. It is primarily about mothers, but there are some others that this applies to. A mom is supposed to have the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit. Now, the New American Standard uses the word humble, so does the New International Version here. In fact, most versions use humble here, or humility. And this is because you're going to need it. Because sometimes the mirror says you're not perfect. You've been there, you've looked in the mirror and seen, oh man, not only am I not perfect, I'm embarrassed. Abraham Lincoln said about his mother, all that I am or ever hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. Benito Mussolini said the same thing. He was a fascist dictator and an atrocious and evil person. Not far south, if you're down near Waterville, New York, if some of you know where that is, there was the Loomis gang around the 1800s, middle. Rhoda Loomis, the mother, told her 12 children not to come home unless they had stolen something. Some mothers, when they look in the mirror, it's going to require some humility. Today's lesson actually has less to do with mothering than it has to do with situations that are unique to mothers. There's an Indian proverb that when the child is born, the mother is born. Jeff Smelser said something like, prepare and prevent rather than repair and repent. Some of you might know George Bosworth. In March 28th of 2010, in the Bulletin, in the article that was written in the Bulletin, he wrote, "The effort to encourage each other to always seek ways to improve is not a matter of nitpicking. It is a matter of love and concern." I don't think more appropriate words could be said for this morning's sermon or any other. We're going to begin. Actually, we're only really going to look at one situation that seems to happen more than one time. Genesis 16. We are looking at Sarai and Hagar. Genesis 16, verse 1. Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maid whose name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, "Now behold, the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Please go into my maid. Perhaps I will obtain children through her." Literally, be built up from. The NIV says, perhaps I can build a family through her. This is essentially, legally, and essentially adoption. Although it's not quite, because the mother still is there. Keep your finger here. Her granddaughter, by marriage, Rachel, in Genesis 30. So Leah, remember Jacob has two wives. Leah has already had Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. She's already had 4. Rachel does, I don't know what I just said. Leah has 4. Rachel doesn't have any. Chapter 30, verse 1. When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she became jealous of her sister and said to Jacob, "Give me children or else I die." Then Jacob's anger burned against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" She said, "Here is my maid Bilhah. Go in to her, that she may bear on my knees, and that," and here's the same word, "through her I too may have children." So it's not actually unusual, though it sounds a little strange to us. We can think of it as adoption. Before we go back to Genesis 16, I do want to point something out. Verse 1, Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children. She became jealous of her sister and said to Jacob, "Give me children or else I die." I cannot think of a less reasonable statement in Scripture than that one. Literally. There are others that are just as bad as it. But this is beyond, this is what we'd say off the chain. This has no basis in reason, which is why Jacob will reply, "Am I in the place of God to do this?" Now, again, I'm about to say something that I have no experience with. All I can do is observe from the mirror something that is a fact. In fact, I need to observe it in a way that I need to exude sympathy. I don't understand it. I'll never know it. But you'll observe what I observe here too. And that is, God literally designed women's bodies to bear children and nurture them. and it does funny things to them. The desire for it will. After you have the child, you've heard of postpartum depression. Now, I don't understand it, but I know that it's there. And so all I can say to the women is, you need to be aware of this and not let it control you. Back in Genesis 16. In Genesis 16, Sarah gives Abram Hagar. Verse 3, after Abram had lived 10 years in the land, Abram's wife Sarai took Hagar, the Egyptian, her maid, and gave her to her husband as Abram as his wife. He went into Hagar, and she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her sight. Two non-mothers, one of them suddenly becomes a mother and looks at the non-mother, and the word here is despise. The word translated despised elsewhere is translated trivial or a slight, as in a slight thing. Isaiah 49:6, is it too small a thing, small, that you should be my servant? Ezekiel 22, behold, the rulers of Israel, each according to his power, the rulers of Israel, have been in you for the purpose of shedding blood. They have treated father and mother lightly within you. Lightly. God will write, far be it from me, for those who honor me I will honor, and those who despise me will be lightly esteemed. There is a device in the English language, it's called lithetes. It is to say no small thing. It's to state the opposite of the negative. I have no small headache right now. And by that we mean we have a big headache. Here he's underscoring or understating to underscore the situation. Those who despise me will be really despised. That's the word that Sarah, that's the word the inspired author used of Sarah's account of what Hagar was doing to her, because she was a mother. Now, it's in all of us, potentially, to have your ugly come out. But there's something up here that was unique to her being a mother, that when she became a mother, it came out. Behold, I am insignificant, Job says. Do you ever want to treat somebody so that they feel insignificant? Not at all. You are contemptible, God says of Israel in Nahum. Do you want the way I talk and the way I act to have the effect that you feel contemptible? Is that what God's children do? Absolutely not. But we have to be aware that this can happen to anybody. Right now we're just focusing on mothers. The Lord of hosts has planned it to defile the pride of all beauty, to despise all the honored of the earth. He came out cursing continually as he came. The word is also translated sharp. I don't know if it could have been translated sharp here as in the words that Hagar said were sharp, or the impact, because you can say words that aren't sharp necessarily, but the impact of them can be destructive. In verse 4, he went into Hagar, she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her sight. And Sarai said to Abram, may the wrong done me be upon you. I gave my maid into your arms, but when she saw that she conceived, I was despised in her sight. May the Lord judge between you and me. Again, this is one of those, it's not reasonable. Okay, we all make mistakes. But listen to her words. May the wrong done me. Hagar is doing wrong to me because she's a mother. It's unique to this very situation. The ugly came out. That word wronged is the word in Genesis 6:11 that the earth was filled with violence. You don't ever want to be associated with any of the words from Genesis 6. You just don't. Simeon and Levi in Genesis 49 with the blessings. Simeon and Levi, their swords are implements of violence. You remember that? You remember what happened with Simeon and Levi. Okay, so Jacob moves to Shechem. Dinah's raped. The guy comes out and says, I want to marry her. And the brothers say, we've got an idea. All of you be circumcised. And then on the third day, they killed all the men. And then they took all their stuff. And here's the word. Psalm 64 says that they sharpened their tongue like a sword and aimed their bitter speech as arrows. This is what's happening here. It can happen in a multitude of situations. This one happens to be, because she was a mother, it came out. The word is also translated oppression and malicious. I hate divorce, says the Lord, the God of Israel, and him who covers his garment with wrong. Take heed to your spirit that you do not deal treacherously. The word treacherously isn't there, but anytime you're in the same sentence with treacherous, you don't want to be there. But yet here it is. Compare or contrast with Proverbs 15:4. A soothing tongue is a tree of life, but perversion crushes the spirit. Sad. Proverbs 15:1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Now, that's the proverb. In other words, this is essentially the plan. You want to know what's going to happen if you use a harsh word? Look, here's the plan. What will follow? Anger. Oh, I wonder what happens in our text. Verse 5, Sarai said to Abraham, may the wrong done to me be upon you. I gave my maid into your arms, but when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her sight. May the Lord judge between you and me. But Abram said to Sarai, behold, your maid is in your power. Do to her what is good in your sight. So Sarai treated her harshly. We knew that would happen, because the pressure was so great. I wonder, in Philippians chapter 4, when Paul says, I urge Euodia and Syntyche to live in harmony in the Lord, I wonder if it had to do with children. It could have. It could have been a lot of things. What Hagar did is put a stumbling block in front, among other things, crushing her spirit. Talk about a crushed spirit. Hagar put a stumbling block in front of Sarai. She picked on her, picked on her, picked on her, picked on her, and picked on her, and I don't know how long it took, but finally, Sarai caved. 1 Peter 3 and 4 said, we already read it, let it be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God. And this is not that. Both people failed. They both failed. Now, I wonder, in this case, let's talk about Sarai for a second. Sarai treated her harshly. It's interesting because that's who it said in 1 Peter 3 that she was in submission to her husband. She's the example. I wonder if Sarai humbly submitted to her husband, but yet to everybody else, that tongue came out. Wham, 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 wham. You've seen it. Whatever your take is on 1 Corinthians 11, you've seen the person who believes 1 Corinthians 11 is for now. It's got to do with long hair, or the covering, or long hair and the covering. And they do it. Why do you do that? It's a sign of submission to my husband. Okay, great. And then over here, wham! The tongue comes out to somebody else. I wonder if that's what God expects of his godly mothers. Not at all. What an inconsistency. Which brings us to, I'm guessing Sarai just made a mistake. I don't know, but I know it's possible. Love hopes all things, love believes all things. And when you see these, and I don't know about Hagar, but God's people sometimes make mistakes. And so when that happens, three things need to be said. I did wrong. I am sorry. Will you forgive me? Now, I said this situation will occur again. This is not the only time in Scripture we see this. Women, because they are a mother, acting in a way that they should not. But again, men act the ways they should not all the time. Right now we're focusing on this one situation here. In 1 Samuel 1 and 2, here we look at Hannah and Peninnah. I suppose I'm saying that right. Verse 1, there was a certain man from Ramathaim Zophim, from the hill country of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jehoram, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. He had two wives. The name of one was Hannah, the name of the other was Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. If you look down at verse 4, when the day came that Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to Peninnah, his wife, Peninnah, and all her sons and her daughters. I don't know what was up with this woman, but she had a lot. Enough to be said of her, all her sons and her daughters. Now, if you remember from Rachel and Leah, Rachel at this point was jealous. That is not spoken, that's not said in this part of the mirror. When we go and we look at Hannah, that is not said of her. It's not even hinted at. It might be in there. We have no record of it. I know it's possible to be in that situation where you're being crushed. And the proper reaction will be to go to God in prayer. And that's what Hannah does. Before we go farther or talk about Hannah much more. Verse 5, but to Hannah he would give a double portion, for he loved Hannah, but the Lord had closed her womb. It's not Hannah's fault. There's nothing she can do about this other than pray. There's nothing she can do. Verse 6, her rival. Those are the inspired words. Her rival. Peninnah, because she was a mother, we'll see, made herself Hannah's rival, and later we'll see enemy. The word rival, some of your versions will say adversary. The word has the idea of vexer, enmity, straits, as in the narrow straits, a place where it's very difficult to get through, there's danger lurking all around, distress. And would provoke her bitterly to irritate her because she was a mother. Because the Lord had closed her womb. It happened year after year, as often as she went to the house of the Lord, that she would provoke her. So she wept and would not eat. How sad. Then Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? And why do you not eat? And why is your heart so sad? Women, I'm sorry, this is a guy here talking. He don't get it. Am I not better to you than 10 sons? Thankfully, the record doesn't record the answer. Then Hannah rose up after eating and drinking in Shiloh. Now Eli the priest was sitting in the seat at the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. She was greatly distressed, prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. She made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and a razor shall never come on his head. Again, if you are ever in this situation, this is the answer. Get on your hands and knees and pray to God. You will be tempted for that tongue to come flying out. And you have to intervene with prayer to God. Now it came about as she continued praying before the Lord, Eli was watching her mouth. As for Hannah, she was speaking in her heart, only her lips were moving, her voice was not heard. So Eli thought she was drunk. Then Eli said to her, How long will you make yourself drunk? Put away your wine from you. Hannah replied, No, my Lord, I am a woman oppressed in spirit. How sad. What a sad story this is so far. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have poured out my soul before the Lord. Thank God for examples like Hannah. Do not consider your maidservant a worthless woman. No, I already feel that way because of her. Wow. You know, she gets granted a child. Verse 2, chapter 2, verse 1. Hannah prayed and said, My heart exults in the Lord. My heart is exalted in the Lord. My mouth speaks boldly against my enemies. You see? What was the rival is now the enemy, same thing. Because I rejoice in your salvation. There is no one holy like the Lord. Indeed, there is no one besides you, nor is there any rock like our God. Now listen. Boast no more so very proudly. Literally, do not let a lot of talk come out of your mouth. Do not let arrogance come out of your mouth. For the Lord is a God of knowledge, and with him actions are weighed. That's pointing back to you know who. Now, I wonder what it is that Peninnah had said that was so very proud. What boast had she made? I won't know exactly, but there are at least 2 hints in here. Verse 4 and 5. The bows of the mighty are shattered, but the feeble gird on strength. You see the picture here. There was Peninnah, who was so strong with all of her children, and there was Hannah, who had no children. But the roles have been reversed, kind of. Now Hannah has children. Verse 5, those who were full hired themselves out for bread. Those who were hungry ceased to hunger. You see the different pictures she's painting. Even the barren gives birth to 7, but she who has many children languishes. Oh, she had many, and I had none. I wonder what the boast was. I don't have to wonder. In verse 2, it said, my heart exults, verse 1, my heart exults in the Lord, my horn is exalted in the Lord. Now that often has to do with strength, but not always. The scholarly commentary, Jameson, Fawcett, and Brown, will have this to say about horn. Allusion is here made to a peculiarity in the dress of Eastern women about Lebanon, which seems to have attained anciently among the Israelite women. Now, I get it. That is not necessarily what's going on here. But what's here is in the world. We will read right here what does happen among mothers. It's strange, but it goes on. That of wearing a tin or silver horn on the forehead, on which their veil is suspended. Wives who have no children wear it projecting in an oblique direction, either straight or down usually, while those who become mothers forthwith raise it a few inches higher, inclining it towards the perpendicular, and by this slight but observable change in their headdress make known wherever they go the maternal character which they now bear. And you can see it. With some. Not with all, but with some. They are designed to bear children and nurture them. And when they don't have them, there's grief in the heart. And when they do, if they're not careful, they make known wherever they go their blessing. One man wrote about the arrogance, verse 3, do not let arrogance come out of your mouth. Let not arrogancy come out of your mouth. Arrogating to themselves, that means claiming as your own what is not yours. Arrogating to themselves and to their merits what they enjoyed. I have all these children because of me. No, you don't. You missed it. As children and riches and etc. When all come from the Lord. There's another word in here. Verse 3, boast no more so very proudly. Peninnah was boasting. It had to do with the fact that she was a mother and the other wasn't. It seems also to have to do with the fact that not only was she a mother, but man, she had a lot. Well, you have none. That seems to be it. It could have been more. I'm not suggesting what I'm about to say is the case. It very could have been the case. That word boast, verse 3. Boast no more so very proudly. Do not let arrogance come out of your mouth. In the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Scriptures, that word boast is symbol for symbol, letter for letter, the exact same word for you boast in your arrogance in James. What was he talking about in James? It would behoove us to go there and look. James 1:16. As it is, you boast. There's our word. It's exactly. You could take one and copy and paste. I wanted to do it up here, but that would have been a waste of time. You boast in your arrogance. What was he talking about? Verse 13. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city and spend a year there and engage in business and make a profit. That's their boast. Their boast is, we are successful now, we will be successful in the future. Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. Do you see how one gets from, or gets to be, we're pretty good right now, and we are going to be pretty good in the future, when you don't even know what the future is? Talk about arrogance and boasting. That's what it is. It doesn't seem it at first, but when you think about it, you say, that's right. That's right. Now, Marcy and I have been to restaurants where you hear the world talk about the successes of their children right now. Oh, my son's he's an entrepreneur, my other one's going to Harvard, and this guy's going to, and oh, it just comes pouring out of them. And then we've heard parents talk about their children's future like they had the gift of prophecy. Like those blessings in the Old Testament, right? Oh, my son's going to do this, and it comes out. They talk the same way. You do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. All of it. If you your lips would keep from slips, 5 things observe with care. Of whom you speak, to whom you speak, and how and when and where. That's what this has all been about. That tongue. Proverbs 18 says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. We've seen illustrations of that this morning. Be careful what you say. Really careful. If nothing else, it could depress somebody else's spirit. In this case, we've been looking at moms talking with moms. It doesn't matter who it is. It could depress their spirit. It could put a stumbling block in front of them. If you, your lips, would keep from slips, and everybody in here is committed to the Lord, says, yes! 5 things observe with care. Of whom you speak, to whom you speak, and how and when and where. And until last week, I never knew the rest of this poem. I didn't even know there was more to this poem. Listen to this. If you, your ears, would save from jeers. Jeers means people laughing at you. Saying, look at them. These things keep meekly hid. Don't talk about them. Myself and I, mine and my, and how I do and did. My family, my kids, my grandma, just don't do it. One way to break a bad habit is to drop it. Be careful of your thoughts, for your thoughts become your words. Be careful of your words, for your words become your deeds. Be careful of your deeds, for your deeds become your habits. Be careful of your habits, for your habits become your character. Be careful of your character, for your character becomes your destiny. If I have misspoken, please let me know. If the words are applicable to anybody in here and you need help, you realize, hey, I'm doing this, or I've been the victim of this, and you want encouragement, you want to talk about it. If these words you found are convicting your heart and you want the help of the congregation, then please let us know as we stand and sing the song that's been selected.